Hello and welcome to Selena's Table and our little Aussie homestead. If you're new here, I'm Selena and today I am going to take you on a sourdough journey. Okay, if you haven't ever made sourdough, this is something for you to really aspire to one day, and I would encourage you to give it a go. This is not a beginner's video, so if you would like to learn how to make sourdough for beginners, I do have a video and I will put a link to that one, and also to making your own starter, so that when you've mastered those two things, come to this video. This would be the third video in my sourdough series, first being starter, even though it was made second. First video you need to master is your starter. Second video is just how to make a sourdough and understanding the process. This is the third video. This is something fun and I'm so excited to share it with you. One of these recipes, I dreamt about this. This was, I'm sure someone else has made it in the past. I'm not claiming to be the original author of this kind of thing, but I had never seen it and I had never seen a recipe for it. I had a dream about it. I had to make it and it was incredible. So that will be one of the recipes, and that's my marbled sourdough. Okay, so today I'm going to make 3 different sourdoughs. I'm going to do them all together. So watch it. If there's one there that you like, just sort of follow along as I go with that one. The steps are basically the same. It's just the different flavors. Okay, we're going to do a chocolate chip sourdough. We're going to do my marbled sourdough, and we're going to do a olive, feta and garlic sourdough. That one is beautiful as a savory dish, and even just with a bit of garlic butter put on it, grill it, delicious garlic bread. Okay, anyway, let's get started. Like I said, this is not a beginner's video as such, but I'll still go through the process. I'm going to do all 3 at the same time. All right, so I've got 3 bowls. 1, 2. Marbled needs 2 bowls. Okay, what we want to get is some water. So also with my sourdough, I'm not going to put any sugar or anything in that savory one. If you are still on the process of learning how to make a plain sourdough, my original video does include a sugar. You don't have to add that, that's entirely optional, okay? So first up, you're gonna need your scales, and each one of my bowls, well, let's not get ahead of ourselves, okay. 300 mils of water per sourdough. So there's one. I did intend to make this video much earlier in the day. It's currently like nearly 3 o'clock in the afternoon, so I'm going to be making this well into the night, but that's okay. It's worth it. Okay, so then that's 2. For my marbled sourdough, we're cutting it in half, all right? So I want 150 grams of water in each of my bowls. All right. We need 100 grams of our sourdough starter, okay, in each. Now this morning I fed my starter, making sure I had 120 grams of everything. So I started with 120 of starter, I added 120 of water and 120 of flour, and then that's been developing all day and it is ready to use. So we want 100 grams in each. 100, and then for these half ones we want 50 in each. And that should leave me with a little bit left over to feed in the morning. So I've got a little bit left. Now in the morning, this will just get fed, okay? I won't bother trying to measure it. I will just add 50 grams of my flour and 50 grams of my water, okay? So that's tomorrow's problem. All right, to each one of these, you want to add a teaspoon of salt. Now that is a half teaspoon, so I'm going to add, no, that's correct for those two. A teaspoon will be 2 of those in the big ones. Look at me, getting confused already. So, a half a teaspoon in each of these ones. A teaspoon each in those 2. All right, you want to give that a quick whisk. And this is a new fancy thing that I bought myself. And I will link it to Amazon for anyone who wants to purchase one for themselves. And I think I even have a whole sourdough kit on there now. For anyone who would like a sourdough kit, you can buy that and support the channel at the same time, if that's what you want to do. Okay. So all I'm doing is I'm incorporating my starter, my water, and my salt together. Now to this is where I need to not lose you. All right, what we will do is our marbled first. So for my marbled sourdough, in each of my small bowls, I need to add 250 grams of flour to the first one. Okay, and I'm going to add a tablespoon of honey. I'm also going to add a tablespoon of honey to the chocolate layer. Okay, that's the white layer. The brown layer of my marble is 230 grams of baker's flour. Grams of cocoa. So that's the ingredients for my 2 marbled sourdoughs. What we'll do before we move on to doing the other 2, we'll give these a mix. We'll start with the white one. Okay. You want to mix it to combine, and if you remember from the making sourdough video, a shaggy dough is what you're looking for, okay? So that is a shaggy dough, okay? We don't need to clean this yet. You combine our other one. So essentially we've just made 2 like mini sourdough loaves. So if you are a person who would like to make smaller loaves, that one that I have a recipe for already is too big, you could make mini loaves. Again, a shaggy dough. We just want this combined, okay? Like that. Set those to the side. We'll do these two. For our chocolate, which I'll do in this one, chocolate chip. We want 40 grams of cocoa. Two tablespoons of honey. That's one. And 460 grams of baker's flour. Okay, and mix that one together. We didn't have to wash our whisk yet because we went from the chocolate one to the chocolate one. Okay, like that. So that one's good to rest. Now we're just going to wash our whisk. All right, whisk is washed. To this one, this one is just like the other sourdough, except I'm going to add things to it. But as far as the bread part goes, it's exactly the same recipe. I'm not going to add any honey to this one or sugar. So we're up to 500 grams of baker's flour. Before we keep going, now we're going to add a couple of things. What I want to add to this is some garlic, all right? So before we mix it, the amount of garlic is completely preferential to what you like. We like garlic, and this particular bread will end up being a garlic bread that I'll slice and I'll put garlic butter on it. So I don't mind just how garlicky this one gets. I'm going to add 4 cloves. actually going to mince this by rubbing my knife through it. You don't have to. You can leave it chunky if you would prefer. Mix that in. Just like that. Alright, so now I will set a timer. I'll cover them all, I'll cover them all, and I will set a timer for 1 hour. So the same as the other sourdough, they need now an hour to rest. So I will cover each of them and set a timer for 1 hour, and I'll see you back. Alright, my timer went off, so that's 1 hour since we made our dough and it's been resting. Okay, I've got some bits and pieces here for the next stage. Alright, so now we're up to the part, if you remember from the other video, now we need to do our series of stretch and folds every 15 minutes or so for about the next 2 hours. Okay, I won't drag you with me for the next 2 hours, but I will show you a couple here and there. I'll do a lot more than you'll actually see in this video. So if you just remember every 15 minutes or thereabouts for the next 2 hours, set a timer for 2 hours, and then set secondary timers if you can for every 15 minutes, and that'll keep you able to do other things while you do it. So all of our doughs have rested. And I'm going to do this in the same process that I made them, because this one's unflavoured, then we've got chocolate, and then we've got garlic. Okay, so we don't want to get garlic in with these other things. So stretch and fold, if we just pull up and fold it over itself about 4 times. So think of it like 4 corners or something, I guess. And this first one is always like the worst one. It's just a bit sticky and not great. So that's the first one. This one's got a bit of dry bits, and that's okay too, all right? It's all right that when you're doing it, that these first stretch and folds have got sort of dry bits and they've got sticky bits. That's the whole point of what we're doing, is we're actually going to incorporate those pieces. Okay. That's all it takes for each of the stretch and folds though. It's just a combination of like about 4 or 5 stretches and then folds. So stretch and fold, okay? Just like that. I'm gonna wash my hands before I touch the garlic. The garlic is already smelling beautiful in this, and I mean obviously the chocolate smells good. So that's good. I'll cover all of those again and I'll just continue doing that every 15 minutes. All right, while they're resting for the next 15 minutes, I'm gonna get some other things ready that are gonna go into these loaves. All right, so we're going to need about half a cup of our white chocolate chips. Okay, and half a cup of brown chocolate chips. And that's for our chocolate loaf, so they can go together. All right, so we've got a cup of chocolate chips all up, roughly. Okay, and in the garlic one, we are going to be adding feta and olives. All right, now feta, I buy the block of feta and then I cut it into 4 and I freeze it. This way, because we aren't huge feta eaters, but it's nice to have feta. And all I had to do was take that out of the fridge this morning, this morning, and pop it in the fridge. And now it's perfect, just like it was when I bought it. So we're going to need about 50 grams of feta. Okay. And about 50 grams of olives. So here I've got just some mixed olives. Now you can either cut them or you can leave them whole, that's up to you. I'm going to slice them, and some of these are stuffed with the little pimento capsicums. Fresh olives are really nice, as in the ones from the deli department rather than your jar, but you can definitely use the jarred ones that come in the brine. These ones I think were sitting in some kind of oil mixture, and they've got a bit of garlic and a bit of chili and things like that in it. So I'm just going to do about half this packet, so that's another 50 grams roughly of olives. All right, and we're going to set that aside. And that's our extra bits and pieces that we needed to do. So I'll just clean this up because we're going to need a really clean bench in a minute as well. But it is time when I finish cleaning this up, it will be time for me to do another round of stretch and folds. Back for another round of stretch and folds. Just stretch and fold, and I won't go through this entirely like I did in the first video, but you get the drift. We're going to continue doing this until the 2 hours is up, and then I'll be able to show you what we do next. Drier bits of the dough are really already being incorporated well into my rest of the dough. It's sort of getting the same kind of texture. Okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring you back after the 2 hours. So I'll bring you back when I've done my last stretch and fold, okay? And that's where this video will pick up next. So it has been 2 hours. I have been periodically every 15 minutes doing my stretch and folds, and now I would ordinarily wrap this ready for its bulk proof, but we're not done. This is where the fun step is. So we're going to do one at a time. This is our chocolate, and I just want a little bit of rice flour. just going to press it down. Okay, so a little bit of rice flour. Now you don't have to use a rolling pin, you can just stretch it. You don't want to use too much flour here because we're actually going to use the stickiness to the bench to our advantage, okay? Just get it started with the rolling pin and then stretch and just stick it down. Okay, I might need to turn this one over, it's a bit, needs more stick. I've used a little bit too much rice flour, that's okay. It'll still be fine. It's just making it harder to open it up. All right, once you get it like that, you want to take some of your chocolate chips and we're just folding chocolate chips into the dough. Okay, just like an envelope. You just want to push them in. And now we want to form a nice tight ball. Stick you in there. Okay. Trying to keep our chocolate chips contained. All right. So this is ready now to do the bulk proof. All right, so I'll put it in a bowl, cover it, and I'll set my timer. Because it's nighttime, I'm probably only going to get 3 hours out of this, but I have found that between 3 and 5 hours is optimum. 5 if it's winter, 3 if it's summer. So sort of work it out in between there. But this is going to go into a bowl and set aside, and we'll do the next one. So the next one I want to do is the marble one. This was the one I dreamt of. And when I did test it, it worked out beautifully. Okay, so what we need to do is just a lighter dusting than I did for that first one of the rice flour. We want to roll out our white dough. Okay. I don't want any tears in the white one. Feels good. So that feels nice and even thickness when I pressed on it. And now we're going to put our chocolate dough on top of the white dough. So you want to carefully take your chocolate out. And we're going to try and stretch it a bit before we put it on the white, because we're going to find it more difficult because it will want to stick to its white friend. Okay, getting it as close to the edges as you can. Now, rolling this up, the shape that you want to make it, the folds you do, that's all up to you, and it will be different every time you do it. It won't always turn out exactly the same. So don't stress if you give this one a go and when you cut it, the marbling is different to mine. I don't expect this to even be the same as the first one that I did, okay? But I'll show you a way to do it. We are going to roll up like a scroll. Gently, okay? And then tuck in like a snail, okay? And just form a nice tight ball. Just like that. So this one will also go, you can see we've got some sticking out there, in a bowl for a bulk proof. The final one we need to do tonight is that garlic, feta and olive, and it will be rolled up very similar to the chocolate chip one. A little bit of rice flour, because this one is a little bit stickier. If you find it sticking to your hands, just use a little bit of rice flour on your hands. Okay, and then taking our bits and pieces, we've got the olives and the feta. Give it a bit of a press down. Again, all we're actually doing is enveloping this into itself. I found that the technique or the direction of my folds don't matter so much. We just want to keep our ingredients, our like mix-ins, on the inside of our dough. Okay, and we've had couple of little olives want to pop out. I'm trying to get that covered up. Okay. So I'm going to let these do their bulk proof now for a good 3, hopefully not 5 hours, because it is night time here, and we will be looking at probably midnight if I let it go to 5 hours, but I can stay up till 10. So at about 10 o'clock tonight, so in about 3 hours time, what I will do is I'll take my covered, now proven dough, and I'll pop them in the lined banneton, okay? I've got 2, an oval one, a round one, but I don't have a third one, so I'm going to use a basket for my third one, and I'll show you that when I actually put them in there, and I'll just line these with a cloth. I find that they're much easier to clean if they have the cloth on them. I don't mind that we don't have the lines because I decorate them anyway with carving. And then they will go to bed for the night, and so will I. So that will be the next bit of this video, is you'll see me just putting each of the dough balls into their banneton or basket and popping them in the fridge, where they will stay overnight, and tomorrow I'll come back and we'll get them baked and we'll have a look and see how they turned out. All right, so to get our baskets ready for our sourdough loaves, I've got these. They're actually a cloth napkin, but I bought them years ago for the purpose of this and for straining my yogurt. So they're only used for that purpose between the yogurt and the sourdough. So I just line. You can get liners for your sourdough baskets as well. I just have these, so this is what I'm using. And then you want to give this a dusting with your rice flour, okay? Because we don't want our bread to stick to our basket when it's asleep at night in our fridge. And we can leave this in the fridge for up to 3 days. The longer you leave them in the fridge, the more tangy they'll be, the more that sourdough, tang that sourdough has. I'm going to just bake these in the morning because I don't necessarily mind if they're tangy or not. But if I somehow don't get a chance to, or if you're doing this in advance, you could have a few in the fridge for a few days worth of baking and do it all at once like I have today. So they are now ready for the dough. When it is time to do that, I'll just pop them straight in. welcome back. Our sourdough has rested overnight and I'm going to bake one at a time just because that's all I have the room for in my oven. So I've put the oven on earlier when I was having my coffee and I set it to the hottest temperature my oven will go, and that is 260, I believe. So 260 degrees Celsius, or as hot as your oven will go, with the Dutch oven inside heating up at the same time. It's now come to temperature, so I'm ready to bake my first loaf. I've just pulled it out of the oven. We'll start with the marbled. So just like in my beginner's guide to sourdough recipe, I'm going to use a little trivet. This came out of my Instant Pot. If you don't have one, you can use it with, you can bake your sourdough without one. I like it because otherwise my base seems to get a little too crunchy. So this is just personal preference. Move that out of the way. We're going to need a piece of baking paper. Not too big, just big enough to hold the base of our sourdough loaf. And I've got some rice flour, just so we don't have any sticking. You want to use rice flour and not plain flour. So gently tip this out. Okay. And I have a little scouring tool now. So I'm just going to gently rub in that flour. All right, going to do one big score. And this one's a little deeper than the rest will be. And then, I mean, my favorite is leaves, which are just little cuts like this. Just like that. And you can see the chocolate layer is starting to peek through. Straight onto the trivet. And if you're not using a trivet, this is ready to go straight into the oven. It does help to carry it, okay? Don't forget to lower the temperature down to 225. So I've set my temperature on the oven, to 220, yeah, I've set my temperature on the oven to 225 degrees Celsius, and I've set a timer for 45 minutes. There are other ways to bake your sourdough. I've seen that you can bake it for 40 minutes and then take the lid off and do it for 5 minutes, and I have done that in the past. I'm not sure which one I said in my original sourdough video, but either will work. So 45 minutes is your cooking time. If you want to take the lid off for the last 5 minutes, that is totally optional, and the baking temperature is 225 degrees Celsius. So I've left my other two in the fridge. I won't pull those out now until it's actually time to be baked individually. Otherwise they come to room temperature. You want a really cold dough and a really hot oven, and then you get the beautiful blistering and all those things, okay? So 45 minutes, we'll be pulling that one out and putting that next one in. Okay, timer's just gone off. I'm gonna pull that one out and then we will get the next one out of the fridge. This is looking good. Look at that. I'll quickly show you this before I get the next one out. Working carefully. Now I don't reuse the paper simply because the hot temperature seems to really like make it thin, I guess. So we just do the one, but look at that. She's hot. All right, let's get the next one out. Now, I want to do the chocolate one next because I don't want any of that garlic flavour permeating into my chocolate loaves. So that's why I'm doing it in this particular order. That one's looking beautiful this morning. So again, a nice long score. Now I've hit some chocolate chips along the way. I'm not going to try and cut them or anything, just around them. So that's the deep one, and I don't know what to do. Maybe just continue with the wheat theme. I should probably get a little bit more creative with my pictures. Like that. And into the oven. So you can see that's what the wheat or the little slices end up looking like. I think it's pretty like that. Let's look at this. This is so beautiful. So while we're waiting for the next one, I realized I need to feed my starter for the day. So as you remember yesterday when we made the sourdough, we took it out of our jar and there's very little left, okay? And I did say I'm just gonna add to this. So if I hadn't have baked yesterday, I would have discarded a portion of my starter into my discard jar that I keep in my fridge. Because I did bake, I've only got enough in here to actually feed it, so there's no discarding anything today. We just add our flour and our water. So on my scales, I don't know how much exactly is in there, but I don't think it's much. I think it's less than 50 grams. So I'm just going to put 50 grams of water and 50 grams of plain flour, 1:1 ratio. So because this jar was clean yesterday morning when I fed my starter, I put it into a fresh jar. I'm not going to change, looking for my spatula, I'm not going to change the jar today. It's only one day. Tomorrow it'll get a fresh jar though. I am going to scrape off some of the outside, but it's not entirely coming off, okay? But that's all right. So there we are, starter is fed for the day. Now I can just set that aside. I won't bake again today any more sourdough because I have now got 3 loaves. Well, I will, so I don't need it for a few days, so I'll just set that aside. I continue to feed it every day, but I don't need to use it today. Look at that one. You see the chocolate melting out of it? Just get this oven door shut. Ooh, hot. So some of the chocolate has melted out of this one, which is another great reason to have that trivet under it, especially if you want to do one with a mix-in like a chocolate or the cheese, because if it melts out, it's only going to go onto the base of the pot and you're not going to end up like cooking it in a puddle. Okay, so time for the last one. Already put a bit of rice flour on my piece of paper. Now you'll notice this one's not as high, and that's because it was in a different shape. That basket is quite a bit wider. So the shapes will be different because I don't have the same baskets to use, but I don't mind variety. Into the oven. You should smell this. Wow. I mean, that's incredible. It's like a garlic bread, olive, feta. It's just, it smells so good. And I have to say, I don't think I mentioned earlier, as I pulled the chocolate and the marble out of the oven, the smell of chocolate was just incredible. So there's the olive, feta and garlic, smelling divine. Are we ready? This is the marbled one. Look at that. Wow. That's going to be delicious. There's a little white chocolate chip there, hiding. Now, that smells so good. You can still see the steam coming off that one. I'll just wash my knife. This one is still hot. We've got steam coming out, and it's not quite as risen. I probably needed to let my oven get a bit hotter after I did cook the first two. I should have reheated my oven back up to that hot temperature. So if you do want to batch cook a few sourdoughs, keep that in mind. It's not that it's overproofed, it's simply that the oven wasn't quite hot enough when I did bake it. But, I don't know, can you see the steam coming off that? Still going to taste delicious. Smells incredible. So there you go. 3 more sourdough recipes for you to try. Thank you again for hanging out with me today. I hope this has inspired you to give some alternative sourdough recipes a try. Have a great week. I'll see you next time.